And good evening. We begin tonight with a breaking headline as we come on the air. The United States mourning a massive collective loss of a magnitude once unimaginable. 1 million Americans dying due to the coronavirus since the start of this pandemic, according to an NBC News analysis. It was just 27 months ago the first case of COVID was detected in this country. Not much was known about the virus at the time, but even the most dire predictions could not have fully accounted for the scope of the devastation that was to come. Tonight, 1 million families grieving the loved ones they've lost, the parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, friends, and even children now gone. On the evening of this grim milestone, we take a moment to look back on what we've been through, the lessons we've learned, and where we are now. Here's NBC News national correspondent Gabe Gutierrez.
It was once unthinkable. Tonight, it's reality. 1 million people in the U.S. have now died from COVID-19, according to the ongoing NBC News count.
I just miss everything about her. Everything.
Lisa Wilson of Palm Beach County, Florida, lost her grandmother, Lily Mae, to the virus last year.
It was so terrifying. My aunt called me and she said something is wrong with her. She was laid across the bed and she was like gasping for air.
Lisa would say goodbye not just to her grandmother, but to her uncle.
So funny.
And 4 cousins within weeks. In all, 6 relatives claimed by COVID.
It was very, very hard.
Back in March of 2020, as streets were deserted and morgue trucks first appeared outside hospitals, for many Americans, the idea of 1 million COVID deaths seemed far-fetched.
We could get in the range of 100,000 to 200,000 fatalities.
Dr. Angela Chen of Mount Sinai Hospital diagnosed the first confirmed COVID case in New York, even before the World Health Organization declared the outbreak a global pandemic. When you first made that diagnosis, did you have any idea what this pandemic would become?
I don't think any of us did.
We spoke with her today in Central Park at the former site of a makeshift field hospital.
It's really been something that I think has fundamentally changed who I am and how I think about medicine, how I think about my patients.
So many families tonight, including Lisa Wilson and her husband, are reflecting on the lives lost and lessons learned.
All of my family members that was deceased from COVID, they were not vaccinated. So vaccines save lives.
Even 7 figures can't measure the grief.
We love you.
All right, Gabe Gutierrez joins us now live on set. You know, Gabe, both of us covered the pandemic from the get-go. I don't think we ever thought we'd be at this point now. 1 million deaths. It's hard to imagine. We know cases are on the rise in many states. Hospitalizations are down, not everywhere, but in most parts. What's sort of your sense of where we're going with these various variants and now that we have vaccines?
Well, Tom, the CDC predicts that over the next 4 weeks or so that the death rate will continue to rise. The one question is these variants and subvariants. Which ones will we see in the coming months and years? There have been some subvariants, as you know, that have fallen by the wayside, but Omicron and Delta did not. Right now, though, we're seeing about 100,000 deaths every 3 months. But the doctors we spoke with today and over the last several days have said that the one thing they have noticed that has changed the game here, the treatments for COVID and, of course, the vaccines.
All right, Gabe, we appreciate you reporting on this. Thank you. We want to turn now to the other big headline today, the economy and the Federal Reserve's decision to raise interest rates for the second time this year. The hike, which is the biggest in more than 2 decades, is aimed at getting staggering inflation under control. NBC business and tech correspondent Jo Ling Kent has more.
With inflation skyrocketing, Willie Price tells us she's praying prices will come down soon.
Everything is high. Everything is almost unaffordable. Food is high. The gas is high. The electric bills went up.
Like the majority of Americans, she now lives paycheck to paycheck. These realities pushing the Federal Reserve to take action again today, raising interest rates by 0.5 percentage point, the biggest hike in 22 years.
Inflation is much too high, and we understand the hardship it is causing.
The Fed's goal, slow down spending to bring inflation down, which is soaring at 8.5%, a 40-year high. Prices spiking across the board from rent to groceries to gas. Today, the national average for a gallon of regular now $4.23, 10 cents higher than just a week ago.
I have not been able to do the complete fill up because, I'm on a basically like a fixed income.
Now, higher interest rates will make loans more expensive, including new auto loans and credit card debt. Interest rates on mortgages today hitting 5.41%, up from just under 3% a year ago.
Our business could potentially start to dip based on the fact that people are going to have to change their buying habits.
Chicago restaurant owner Terry Evans worries she'll have to pass along the higher cost of her business loans to her customers as she tries to expand.
It's not an easy discussion because we still want to do right by our customers as well.
Those high prices tough for small business owners and consumers alike. Joe joins us now. So, Joe, the Fed chair was also asked about fears of a recession. What did he say?
Yeah, Fed Chair Jerome Powell said the economy is strong. In fact, he added that nothing about it suggests that it's close to or vulnerable to a recession. But there are a lot of economists out there that disagree, especially when you have inflation so high and unemployment so low. A recession could very well still be on the horizon. Tom.
Joe Lynn Kent for us from Los Angeles tonight. Joe, we thank you for that. For more on how this could impact the U.S. economy and the Fed's next move, I want to bring in CNBC senior economics reporter Steve Leisman, who asked the Fed chair about that rate increase today, 50 basis points, which sent the market soaring. Steve, Powell told you the committee isn't looking at a 75 basis point rate hike increase, which is about 0.75%. Today's rate hike wasn't a surprise, though. The Fed had been forecasting that this was a possibility. But as we just heard Joe Ling say there, this was the biggest hike in 2 decades. Do you think they got it right?
I think so, at least for now. And I think the reason he took that 0.75 point interest rate hike off the table is because the Fed is asking the markets and the economy to digest an awful lot right now. As you said, they haven't done 50 basis points in 22 years. They're also now reducing their balance sheet. They're selling assets to try to slow the economy. And it's an awful lot. They've never done this much before. They've never done both really together in a very long time. So the story is this. He took 50 basis points, 75 basis points off the table, but the Fed is still doing 50. Unfortunately, Tom, the real answer to your question is we don't know yet. If the Fed can raise interest rates, slow the economy, beat back inflation, and do it all without a recession, then, yeah, what they did today was exactly perfect.
Do Americans feel these rate hikes immediately?
Some of them do, right? So your prime rate's going to go up with the Fed funds rate. Already, Americans are seeing much higher mortgage rates. Your credit card interest rates are likely to go up over time. So if you're out there borrowing money, if you have any variable rate credit, in other words, credit that changes with other interest rates, then you're probably going to see that happen. Over time, though, you're also going to maybe see the economy slow a little bit. If the Fed chairman has his way, the job market will be okay. You'll still have a low unemployment rate. It might not be quite as low as it is right now. It's a very good market now if you're looking for a job, looking to change your job. I think if the Fed is successful, it won't be quite such a good market for those job seekers right now, but it should be still okay.
So as Powell looks into his crystal ball, he still sees soaring inflation, and then somewhere in that crystal ball, he sees the big R, right, recession. Do you think these rate hikes are moving at the right pace to sort of tame inflation without diving straight into a recession?
I'm sorry, we just don't know, but it's a good question, and I'll tell you what I think Powell is hoping for. You bring back the rates that were existing before the economy had the pandemic. Remember, the Fed went down to zero. It slashed rates to try to keep the economy going during the pandemic. Stayed around too long, kept stimulating the economy for too long. That is what we think is what created the recession, the inflation problem we have. But you also had the supply chain bottlenecks. You also had, many millions of Americans leave the workforce. So the Fed scenario here of what we call a soft landing, in other words, we get out of all this without a recession, is the supply chain bottlenecks unclogged. People come back to work. The inflation rate comes down to a reasonable place. So the Fed has to slow the economy, but doesn't cause it to contract. That is the best possible outcome. I will say that there are doubters out there, people who think that a recession here is inevitable. The good news is not till next year.
All right, CNBC's Steve Leisman for us tonight here on Top Story. Steve, thank you. We want to turn overseas now to the war in Ukraine. The Russian army taking losses as the Ukrainian army pushes them back. And tonight, the new information on what has been the single deadliest attack on civilians in the war so far. The numbers apparently far worse than initially believed. Kelly Kobiea reports from inside Ukraine for us.
Tonight, Ukrainian officials say Russia is losing ground, despite almost constant shelling on the northeastern city of Kharkiv. Ukrainian troops say they've now regained control of at least 11 villages in the region. Soldiers finding homes in ruins, bodies of villagers, and Russian soldiers left behind. We lived in the basement for 2 months, this woman says. The Russians pointed guns at us and stole everything. In Mariupol, a new investigation from the AP using eyewitness accounts and floor plans suggests the mid-March bombing of the theater there killed close to 600 people, not the 300 initially believed, though an exact number cannot be determined. And newly released satellite images show smoke rising from the city's old steel plant, where hundreds of civilians and fighters are hiding. You guys don't understand how scary it is, this woman said. Marina's husband is fighting in that plant. When we first met her at a shelter in Dnipro, she told us, I just pray he's alive and he'll make it out. She hasn't heard from him in 5 days. Mariupol's mayor today. How many people, how many civilians are still there? The Russians are still storming the plant, even though they said they wouldn't, the mayor said, telling me more than 200 civilians are still inside, including at least 20 children. But tonight, firepower from the U.S. is reaching the battlefield. A senior U.S. defense official says 90% of the howitzers promised to Ukraine are now in the country. And tonight, that senior U.S. defense official says most of the Russian forces in and around Mariupol have now moved north, likely to join the fight in Donbass, and only about 2,000 remain in the city. Tom?
All right, Kelly Kobiea for us. Kelly, thank you. Next to Washington and the shockwaves over the future of abortion rights after that leaked draft of a Supreme Court opinion that would overturn Roe v. Wade. Democrats now looking to fire up their base to make abortion the issue of the upcoming midterms. Peter Alexander has the latest.
Tonight, with protests growing,
well, good afternoon.
President Biden insisting that leaked draft opinion that would overturn Roe v. Wade could lead to the unraveling of other privacy rights, from contraception to gay marriage.
This is about a lot more than abortion.
The president using the draft opinion to slam former President Trump's allies.
What are the next things that are going to be attacked? Because this MAGA crowd is really the most extreme political organization that's existed in American history, in recent American history.
Although the draft is not the court's final decision, Vice President Harris blasted Republican leaders during an event last night.
How dare they tell a woman what she can do and cannot do with her own body? How dare they?
Still, Democrats do not have many options without the Senate votes to pass a law that would guarantee abortion rights nationwide. Instead, Democrats are looking to amplify the abortion issue heading into the midterms to target Republicans.
This November is going to be a referendum on privacy and your rights to freedom as an American. They don't want to make that the case. They want it to be, oh, it's inflation. It's something at the border. No, it's something more basic than that.
Overturning Roe would not outlaw abortion, but would leave it up to state legislatures to decide whether there should be restrictions. Currently, 13 states have so-called trigger laws that would ban abortion if Roe is overturned, with exceptions for the health of the mother. Republicans tonight insist there's a reason Democrats are focusing on the leaked opinion.
They want to change the topic from immigration, from the soaring inflation. They want to get off of the things that are so unpopular about this president.
All right, Peter joins us now from the White House. Peter, any sense of where Democrats go from here? Clearly, their base is upset about this decision.
Yeah, no, Tom, you're exactly right. And Democrats have now taken the first steps toward a vote to guarantee abortion rights. But that vote's all but certain to fail. Still, they say they want to do it to get every senator on the record. And some of the president's allies, they really see this as an opportunity, or the effort to try to push an end to the filibuster, as a fool's errand, because they don't have those votes. Instead, they're focused on what they see as that opportunity, trying to galvanize Democrats to turn out for candidates that support abortion rights in the midterms coming up this fall. Tom?
All right, Peter Alexander for us, and we're going to stick with politics now. Last night, the first major test of former President Trump's grip on the Republican Party ahead of the midterm elections. The Senate candidate he endorsed in Ohio, author J.D. Vance, winning the state's primary. NBC's Vaughn Hilliard was there.
The American political right moving even closer to Donald Trump's image on Tuesday night.
They wanted to write a story that this campaign would be the death of Donald Trump's America First agenda. Ladies and gentlemen, it ain't the death of the America First agenda.
J.D. Vance winning a crowded GOP primary for Ohio's U.S. Senate seat, leaping roughly 20 percentage points since Trump endorsed him.
I want to pick somebody that's going to win, and this man is going to win. Come on up, J.D.
Vance is an ally in spreading Trump's false 2020 election conspiracies, and is close to other Trump loyalists like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Matt Gaetz.
What ultimately made you decide J.D. Vance?
Donald Trump.
Vance has said if Trump enters the White House again, he should push the envelope of executive power.
Fire every single mid-level bureaucrat, every civil servant in the administrative state, replace them with our people.
And part of his America First foreign policy,
I got to be honest with you, I don't really care what happens to Ukraine one way or another.
Democrat Tim Ryan will now face Vance in the red trending state.
People in Ohio look at the candidate and they say, who's most Ohio? Who's fighting for us?
On the Republican side, voters said that person for them is Vance. His victory, a win for Trump, rattling Democrats.
This was just the first of several critical tests ahead for Trump's influence in these key primaries over the next 3 weeks. Next up, Nebraska and West Virginia this upcoming Tuesday. Tom?
We thank Vaughn for that, and we are about to enter a busy political season as we head into the midterms. For more on what last night's race means for the GOP, I want to bring in my friend, NBC News political director and Meet the Press moderator, Chuck Todd. Chuck, listen, I know it's one race in one state, and it was a primary, right? But I want to put up the results of the race yesterday in that Senate primary in Ohio, because I think a lot of people are focusing on J.D. Vance, of course, the Trump endorsement, winning there with 32% of the vote. But we also have to remind viewers, Chuck, right? Josh Mandel was also hoping to get that Trump endorsement. He ran as the Trump candidate in this race. And my point to you is that you add up their numbers, right, and you get more than 50% of the vote, at least in the GOP. So the question is, Chuck, is it fair to say that President Trump still has a grip on the GOP looking at this one race?
Well, and I'd add Mike Gibbons in there. He was running as a Trump acolyte, too. Right. So 3 of the top 4 there were running to be, Trump, maybe for Trumpism, and certainly we're campaigning on Trumpism, with J.D. Vance being the only one with the Trump endorsement. Look, I do think, right, you can look at this through 2 lenses, and it really is about what do you want the party to be? Republicans that are hoping Trump's grip is loosening, they're clinging to the idea, hey, 60+% didn't support a Trump candidate. But I do think you're looking at it in a more correct way, Tom. This is still, Trump's still the most influential figure in the party. Look, is there a chunk of Republican voters that like Trumpism and not Trump? Yes. All right. There is a group of those voters. But right now, I think his endorsement it's certainly something that makes a primary easier. It's no guarantee. We're going to see this later this month. He's going to lose some in Georgia for sure. Maybe in Pennsylvania. I don't think it's going to be as easy. So that's my next question. This isn't a slam dunk yet.
Right. So talk to our viewers about Pennsylvania and Georgia. We can start in Pennsylvania where the former president has endorsed Dr. Oz. Dr. Oz, if you go to his campaign website, it's literally built like Donald Trump's old campaign websites with the same logos, the same colors. How are his chances in Pennsylvania?
Look, I think he's going to have a harder time getting across the finish line. He still may win this, and Trump's endorsement and Trump campaigning for him, he's going to head there and campaign for him, and he still get there. The difference between J.D. Vance and Dr. Oz is J.D. Vance was from Ohio. Dr. Oz is not, right? He's sort of a kind of a transplant, kind of a carpetbagger, really from New Jersey. Yes, has some Pennsylvania ties. But more importantly, when you think about the Trump base, J.D. Vance culturally fit the Trump base. Dr. Oz doesn't as easily. So, and you throw in that you have an opponent, David McCormick, also, by the way, a carpetbagger, essentially, not really from Pennsylvania, more from Connecticut, but has some familial ties, so has got enough to run for the race there. So, look, I think Oz is going to be is going to have a tougher time getting over the finish line. He still may, but I think Trump's got to work harder. And in Georgia, knocking off incumbent governors in a primary, about the single hardest thing to do in American politics.
And for Trump, this is about settling scores.
Sitting incumbent president.
And Georgia, for Trump, is about settling scores.
It is, and I think in some ways he's been too focused on settling scores to the point of his chosen candidate has nothing else to run on. And I think that's come through. And incumbent governors, they have a lot of stuff they can run on that they've done in a 4-year period that can please enough constituencies here. And we're starting to see Governor Kemp there pull away.
Yeah, and, so Chuck, I want to talk about the broader picture here, right? And what's the larger point? Of course, the midterms are so important, but also the big question is what happens in 2024? And does President Trump run again, right? And what that would mean, and could he win? And I want to put this up now. These are the potentials for 2024. Republicans who may or may not run. This was put together by the Top Story Brain Trust, so I don't know if this was approved by Chuck Todd, but we have a lot of names that we expect here, right? We have President Trump. Yeah. We have Mike Pence. Right? We have Senator Tim Scott, Senator Rubio, Senator Cruz, Governor Ron DeSantis, who's incredibly popular right now. And then you have other people like Nikki Haley and Chris Christie. And then we have that sort of who else is going to run ×3, because there's probably 3 other senators or governors who are going to join this race. I put this on the screen, Chuck, because covering 2016, we got to remember Trump had about, depending on the race, 15 to 25% of the vote, right? But the vote was so fractured, right, that he was able to run and win with those numbers. If all these Republicans win again, and then Trump decides to run, isn't he a shoo-in?
Well, the bigger the field, the better it is for Trump. There's no doubt about it. And that's why I think if he, look, it all depends on how he dances with this. Does he run, doesn't he? I crawling inside his head to try to predict that, I think, is a fool's errand. But if he runs, he's going to probably get the nomination. It's going to be pretty hard to deny a sitting president. Most importantly, Tom, he's got the entire sort of infrastructure of the party itself behind him, the RNC, those that are in charge. Many of the state parties are Trump acolytes. So if he chooses to run, it really is his nomination. But I want to single out one person on your list. If Donald Trump doesn't run, I will tell you the Republican that probably scares Democrats the most, and the Republican that would unite the party the easiest is South Carolina Senator Tim Scott. It's the name I'm hearing more and more quietly in Washington all the time as sort of the one person that might be able to bridge the divide between, say, Mitt Romney and Donald Trump.
But are you saying just a Tim Scott on the ticket or a Tim Scott running for president?
Tim Scott is the nominee.
Okay.
No, Tim Scott is the nominee. Tim Scott on the ticket, not nearly as powerful for the Republicans, I think, and a healing power for Republicans than Tim Scott at the top of the ticket.
All right, Chuck Todd, we're going to have to wait and see, of course. We always appreciate your time. All right, and we turn now to another story we've been following throughout the week, the latest on that manhunt for a suspected murderer and the prison official suspected of helping him escape. Authorities releasing new images of the two as they left the county jail and went on the run. NBC's Sam Brock is following the trail.
The last time anybody laid eyes on correctional officer Vicky White and capital murder suspect Casey White was on the surveillance video at the Lauderdale County Jail, where Casey White walked handcuffed and shackled into a waiting patrol car. Tonight, new video emerging, shedding light on the pair's movements after leaving jail. This showing the police cruiser on a local road. Right before the vehicle was abandoned in this parking lot underneath the Florence Square sign. It sits adjacent to a busy road, yet no one appeared to notice when the pair got out, with Casey standing a towering 6'9" and possibly in an orange jumpsuit.
I don't know if he had already changed clothes. There's a lot of different ideas. Everybody's talking about it.
I would have noticed somebody that tall. I think I would have.
The whereabouts of the apparent couple is anybody's guess. Authorities releasing information about their original getaway car, a copper 2007 Ford Edge with damage to the rear bumper, though they now believe that car has been ditched. Reports overnight of car spottings in a number of states proving to be false alarms.
So you had a possible spotting in Florida, a possible spotting in Huntsville. Both of those turned out to be inaccurate.
In Kentucky and Tennessee and several other states.
The sheriff's office revealed the Whites had a, quote, special relationship that dates back at least to 2020, with the sheriff telling us that Vicky visited Casey White in state penitentiary.
He was here in 2020 for an arraignment and preliminary hearing. When he finished that, he went back to state prison. We do know that they remained in touch while he was in state prison between then and the time he was brought here in February.
So their relationship, in whatever parameters you would define it, is at least 2 years old?
Yes.
Maybe older?
Could be older.
Now the manhunt runs a 6th day as the man accused of stabbing a 58-year-old woman during a home invasion remains on the run.
We have a professional jail staff, so, this could happen with the best of folks. I mean, Vicky White, I would trust with my life, and she's that kind of solid person.
White's unblemished, decades-old reputation suddenly facing serious questions in the middle of an improbable jailbreak.
All right, Sam Brock joins us now live from Florence, Alabama. Sam, I got to tell you, that was an incredible soundbite there from that corrections official that he would trust his life with Vicky White, and now everyone thinks she's escaped with this fugitive. I got to ask you, we've been reporting they're armed and dangerous. Do we have any kind of idea what kind of weapons they have on them?
So in addition, Tom, to Vicky White's official weapon, according to the sheriff, she has an AR-15, a shotgun, and a pistol. And in the words of the sheriff, it is a fair assumption that they're carrying all those weapons with them. One of the reasons why the department has described those two as armed and dangerous.
All right, new tonight, Amber Heard takes the stand nearly a month into the $50 million defamation trial, a suit brought by her ex-husband, Johnny Depp. The actress defended herself today in open court, alleging abuse, which Depp has long denied. Maggie Vespa has the latest from court, and tonight we want to warn you, some of the testimony is extremely disturbing, including the description of an alleged sexual assault.
God, did he just hit me? No, I didn't want to leave him. I didn't want this to be the reality. I didn't want to have the man I was in love with. I know you don't come back from that.
Amber Heard, emotional and on the record, accusing Johnny Depp of abuse.
I turned to look at him. And I said, Johnny, you hit me. You just hit me.
The 36-year-old actress today taking the stand in her own defense amid a $50 million defamation suit brought by her A-list ex-husband. Heard claims Depp, 58, physically and sexually abused her. Allegations he denies. The actress today describing one 2013 instance in graphic detail.
He's like grabbing my breasts. He's touching my thighs. He rips my underwear off, and then he proceeds to do a cavity search. He said he was looking for his drugs, his cocaine, his coke. Just stood there staring at the stupid light. I didn't know what to do. I just stood there. While he did that, he twisted his fingers around. I didn't say, like, stop or anything.
The Texas native testifying for hours, telling the jury she met Depp on the set of the 2011 movie The Rum Diary, connecting over books and red wine.
Then we fell in love. It made me feel seen, made me feel like $1 million.
The romance, a whirlwind marked by extravagant gifts from Depp, including a horse. But quickly Heard said things turned dark. She testified Depp would get angry when Heard wore low-cut dresses or booked acting roles.
He would make these comments about, whoring myself out.
Soon, she said, Depp started smashing glasses and punching walls. One day, Heard testified she laughed at a tattoo of his, and he slapped her.
I laughed because I didn't know what else to do. He said, you think it's so funny? You think it's funny? You think you're a funny? And he slapped me again.
Heard testified the abuse escalated, often fueled by drugs and alcohol. This 2013 photo showing lines of cocaine submitted by Heard's lawyers as evidence. During an argument that same year, Heard testified Depp choked her.
And slams me up by my neck and holds me there for a second and tells me that he could kill me.
The violence, Heard said, always followed by Depp apologizing and promising to stop. In 2018, Heard published an op-ed in the Washington Post describing herself as a public figure representing domestic abuse. The article never names Depp, but his lawyers argue it clearly referenced him and crippled his career, costing him millions. Depp last month testified he never abused Heard.
I've never struck Miss Heard. I've never struck a woman in my life.
But now Heard, who's countersuing for $100 million, is on the stand and will soon face cross-examination
from Depp's attorneys.
All right, Maggie Vespa joins us now from Los Angeles. Maggie, that was incredibly graphic testimony. We may expect more of the same as Heard stays on the stand and then she's cross-examined. But we're also learning about the witness list.
Exactly, especially given what we heard today. People are kind of looking ahead to who might follow Heard and maybe be able to corroborate some of this. On her original witness list, remember, actor James Franco and Tesla CEO and now Twitter owner Elon Musk. Heard starred in a movie with Franco and dated Musk for a period of time. But tonight reports the two men are no longer expected to appear. Musk's attorney confirming that to NBC. No response from Franco's camp and no reason why from either camp. Tom.
All right, an interesting turn there. Maggie, we thank you for that. And when we come back, a new electric vehicle plant could transform a small town in western Tennessee, but the leaders there say they're forced to fight for control of their own community. Priscilla Thompson went there. She's bringing back an incredible story and will explain what's going on as this town may be about to see a boom. Stay with us. All right, we are back now with Top Stories newsfeed, and we begin tonight with the judge overseeing Derek Chauvin's civil rights case, accepting his plea deal. That judge saying he will sentence the former Minneapolis police officer to 20 to 25 years in prison. In December, Chauvin pleaded guilty to violating George Floyd's civil rights. Chauvin is already serving a 22.5-year sentence for Floyd's murder. He is appealing that conviction. Next, a TurboTax's owner agreeing to pay $141 million to customers across the U.S. New York State's Attorney General announcing the tax filing service used a misleading ad campaign to lure millions of people who qualified for free government services and then asked them to pay. The owners admitted to no wrongdoing. A car fire in Maryland taking way longer than usual to put out. It happened in the Cabin John area of Montgomery County. You can just make out the SUV through all the smoke there. Officials say it took them nearly 3 hours and a lot more water to extinguish the flames when it typically takes minutes. They say it's because it's a hybrid and the batteries are hard to cool. Turning now to the battle in a boomtown, Ford now building one of its largest car factories ever in Tennessee to manufacture the electric F-150 truck. The car giant hasn't even broken ground on the multi-billion-dollar plant, but already a fight over who will control the surrounding area is underway. Our Priscilla Thompson spoke to residents and leaders in the small town at the center for the fight for power.
Land as far as the eye can see, a necessity for any major auto plant. But we're a long way from Detroit. Why Tennessee?
We looked at 15, 20 different states, and this site that we're standing on really stood out above all others.
Ford is among several major automakers looking to dominate the electric vehicle market, and they're setting up shop in the South to do it.
Today, we're announcing the largest investment in American manufacturing in the history of our company.
That investment, an ambitious $5.6 billion mega campus called Blue Oval City, where the electric version of America's most popular vehicle, the Ford F-150 truck, will be built.
We needed a site that has the size, the flexibility, and the breadth of what we need in terms of the infrastructure. An electric battery plant requires 5 times the electricity that a normal assembly plant requires today.
Volkswagen, General Motors, and Nissan all churning out cars in factories across the state. What impact do you think this will have in Western Tennessee?
I think it's going to be transformational. I think it'll bring the next generation of jobs and tech jobs to this area.
Already, Ford has begun recruiting local 8th graders.
It's an amazing sight to see, though. You know, you see all these companies, big companies like Ford, here to give us an opportunity to see what our future could look like.
Ford's Blue Oval City will be one of the largest U.S. auto plants ever. The 3,600-acre campus will cover nearly 6 square miles and employ about 6,000 people. With this expected boom will come money. Lots of it. The more than $1 billion the state has already committed to the area to attract Ford, just the beginning, with the potential to send property values in towns near the plant soaring. Towns like Mason. The predominantly black town of around 1,100 people has a median household income of only $35,000 a year. The median home value just under $90,000.
I think it's a good idea, you know, it's bringing in new jobs and, you know, just something new for Tennessee because they definitely need it.
I think it's going to be good for the community, you know, a lot of opportunities for a lot of people.
Very excited about it. Can't wait.
I'm excited because I want to, see change.
But just when the town of Mason thought hope was on the horizon,
citizens of one small West Tennessee town are fighting to keep their community under their control.
It all started with a letter sent by the state comptroller to the town residents.
We were blindsided. We had two options. One was to relinquish our charter. If we did, they would come in and take over the finances of the town.
Giving up the charter would place the predominantly black and Democratic town in the hands of Tipton, the majority white and Republican-leaning county that Mason is part of.
That means that no citizen that is now in Mason will have any say-so whatsoever. They would come in and do whatever they want to any of us, however they want to do us.
For more than a century, Mason was run by white elected officials. That all changed in 2016 when almost all the town officials resigned amid fraud and mismanagement allegations. Now, all of Mason's leaders are black.
He was determined to try to divide our city by causing the people to turn against the elected officials that they had placed in office.
The comptroller says his office is only looking out for Mason's best interest, writing in that letter that the town has been poorly managed for at least 20 years, then highlighting opportunities that the new Ford plant could bring before adding, people and companies will not invest their money in a poorly run town. The comptroller denies race played any role. He declined to be interviewed on camera for this story, but a spokesperson tells NBC News that their office has worked with Mason for years to pay down the roughly $500,000 that was owed to the state when the letter was sent, adding, due to the fact that previous attempts at corrective action with the town were unsuccessful, the comptroller has taken the final step of enhanced financial supervision.
The comptroller has said, this isn't about race, there's no bias. He just wants to best position Mason so that they can reap all the benefits when Blue Oval City comes.
That's bull. These people laying here, the value is going to skyrocket. So yes, you want to take control of the land and the money that's coming down the line because you don't want us to have control of it.
Last month, the NAACP got involved, suing the state to stop the financial takeover.
When we looked across the state, cities and towns that had problems with their finances, they were never asked to give up their charter. We saw it as clear discriminatory practices.
But a judge ruled the comptroller has broad authority over local government operations, including requiring state approval for any town expenses over $100, writing, the court recognizes the harsh realities imposed upon an administration that did not contribute to the financial burden of the town. But the court must also take into account the state's interest in moving the town towards financial stability and a balanced budget.
If this debt is not paid off by the time Blue Oval is up and running, by the time those businesses and people do start coming, what then?
Well, it's going to be paid. We're going to do it. I just believe God's going to make a way.
All right, Priscilla Thompson is back, and she has some new reporting tonight. So that judge ruled that the comptroller can't control the town's finances. So where do they go from here?
Yeah, Tom, I spoke with the vice mayor the day that ruling came down, and she told me the town was going to continue to fight. But in the last 24 hours, we spoke with the comptroller's office, who says that both sides have reached an agreement in which Mason would drop that lawsuit, and the comptroller would allow a public accounting firm to take over control of the expenses, approving anything over $1,000 instead of $100. The vice mayor confirms that that agreement is in the works, but says it's not a done deal yet. And so as it stands, this town has around $250,000 left to pay off. If the agreement stands, they will have 4 years to do that and could get out of the red just as those F-150s are rolling off the assembly line.
Yeah, and what's happening here is that this could be a turning point for that town with this new plant coming from Ford. They want to make sure that they benefit from everything that's out there.
Exactly.
All right, Priscilla, we thank you for that. Time now for Top Stories Global Watch. And police in Mexico finding hundreds of migrants trapped in a broken down abandoned truck. Officials say they found this truck with 280 people crammed inside on a highway near Cordoba, a few hours southeast of Mexico City. They were apparently hidden behind a fake wall inside of the truck. A Red Cross worker said locals realized people were trapped when they heard screams. A few of the migrants were treated for dehydration. Next to the record-breaking rain in Spain, triggering floods in Valencia. A look at this ambulance driver being rescued from the roof of his own vehicle and firefighters wading through waist-deep water to move submerged cars. Local media reporting some tunnels and the metro system had to close. About 10 inches of rain fell in just 24 hours. And Chinese researchers say they're setting up the world's highest weather station. It's near the summit of Mount Everest, the world's tallest mountain. Researchers are trying to study the impact of climate change at this extremely high altitude. The new Chinese station, now higher than one set up by British and American scientists 3 years ago. All right, still ahead tonight, it was one of the biggest moments in sports ever. Diego Maradona's controversial hand of God goal in 1986, a World Cup game. You won't believe just how much someone paid for the jersey he was wearing that night and who just sold it. We've got those details. Stay with us. Back now to a record-breaking auction. A soccer jersey outselling a jersey worn by the great Babe Ruth. The shirt worn by Diego Maradona during the infamous Hand of God goal, today selling for millions of dollars. It's one of the most debated moments in sports history, a goal that energized a nation and helped create the legend of Diego Maradona.
And Maradona has scored.
Maradona playing for his home country of Argentina, scoring the notorious Hand of God goal against England during the 1986 World Cup. The FIFA referee didn't see it, but cameras captured the moment the soccer icon's hand touched the ball. That goal, along with a later Maradona goal in that game known as the goal of the century, propelled the Argentinian team to a World Cup victory.
What happened in that game has an impact on soccer forever.
36 years later, the jersey worn by Maradona, the man attached to the Hand of God, was put up for auction and tonight sold for an ungodly price. Sotheby's announcing the shirt brought in $9.28 million today during an online auction, beating out the previous record, a jersey worn by Yankees great Babe Ruth, which sold for $5.6 million in 2019. Maradona, a national icon in Argentina when he died in the fall of 2020, the country declared 3 days of mourning. Millions attended his viewing.
Wherever he played, he made an impact. So I think that makes him so special. I don't know if there's any other soccer player that traveled around and in every team that he played was equally loved.
His 1986 Hand of God goal, a victory for the country of Argentina. Just 4 years before, the country suffered a military defeat versus the United Kingdom in the Falklands War.
I think the Argentinians took it a little bit personally.
No, it was not a revenge. It was just a soccer match, and the best team won.
30 years later, Maradona reflecting on the significance of his goal.
Que los ingleses venían a jugarse la vida. Ahora, lo que no tenían en cuenta ellos, que nosotros no íbamos a jugar dos vidas.
Adding to the controversy, Maradona's historic jersey has spent the last 36 years in English hands. Player Steve Hodge swapped shirts, a post-match soccer tradition, with the legend directly after the 1986 World Cup match. The Argentinian national team had called on Hodge to return the famous jersey to its home country. Today, instead, he cashed in. Thanks so much for watching Top Story. I'm Tom Llamas in New York. Stay right there. More news on the way.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.